A winter activity is making a difference in the community. It wrapped up tonight to help a local nonprofit organization in Carlton. Never Surrender, a Carlton nonprofit, hosted their celebration dinner to mark the end of the 3-day Blackwoods Blizzard Tour, a snowmobile ride all around the Northland raising money to fight ALS, which currently has no cure. The event was staged in Black Bear Casino and held an auction of products of all kinds that people could bid on. Around 500 people attended, contributing to the auction, where the money goes towards the Never Surrender organization. That organization sets up funds with programs and research that help cure ALS.
And tonight is about hope. It's about people that have taken a weekend and they've taken Valentine's night to come here and help less fortunate people, which is really cool. I'm proud to be involved.
Their goal for the night was to raise $1.3 million. We will let you know if that goal was met later on our website.